We should be looking at growth in a different mindset. Growth. So instead of growth, we should be celebrating the lowering prices, because it means the growth is actually is essentially declining prices, and growing means freeing our time.
Yeah.
It's not growth for the sake of growth, and I'm going to distort my currency to get more growth, or lower my labor rate to get more growth by distorting my currency. And that's the people thing that people, so many things change. All the metrics change. When governments are measuring productivity, and they're not measuring, like, how do you measure productivity of something that's free for you today? That's the point, right? Look at your phone. Look at all the apps that are free, completely free. It was only, I think, 8 years ago that CNBC put a post on why the self-driving car would never work, because the LiDAR on it, number one, it won't be LiDAR, it'll be what Tesla is doing. So they missed that. But the LiDAR on it was $65,000 per unit. So it couldn't scale.
Right.
Apple's new phone has that same LiDAR or equivalent LiDAR, and the cost bill of materials is $5.
Wow.
It comes to you for free. And so the whole different industry is being built on top of this digital, and so the prices just keep coming down, and exponentially more gains.
Yeah.
So, and how does an economist measure that? Right? How do they say, because it doesn't show up in GDP because it's free.
Right. But it is the biggest contributor to productivity gains. Right?
Exactly. So they're trying to get us to buy more things, more houses, so we can spend more everything else. So we can, when that's becoming less and less of the overall economy.
Right. And the measure is clearly broken. I mean, even as we're proving with a Zoom call right now, you and I didn't have to fly somewhere, book a hotel, book a studio, sit down. We're just using digital technology to bend time and space and talk to each other. So both of our productivity has exploded.
And you should see where this is going. So where this conversation is going. I've seen some of the technology, leading edge technology. A couple of my friends, two different friends, are actually running different companies where this conversation, we could have 4 different people in this conversation, and it would feel like we're talking to each other. It's using AI and digitizing ourselves in 3D. And I could whisper something to you and the other 4 couldn't hear that.
Wow.
It would be like we were sitting beside each other. And it's already here. It's just not widely distributed yet.
Right.
And so when you think about, and what is, I forgot who said it, the future is here, it's not widely distributed. When you see some of these technologies and what they mean, we're talking Zoom and what it's changed. That change eradicates borders.
Yeah.
Because in BC, I was with a bunch of ministers in my province, and they're talking about how we're going to protect the jobs, and why Zoom is such a good thing, because now we can move some of the jobs to the smaller cities, and those people can get employment. But that's not how it'll work. The businesses will hire the best labor wherever that labor is.
Right.
So if you can hire somebody for cheaper, that's in your case a state away, that might be the first step. But if you can remote work and you get really good at remote work, why wouldn't you hire somebody? Why wouldn't you open up your labor market to the world?
Right. Yeah, of course.
And so it becomes more and more deflationary and more information, and that's just kind of the first step.
Yeah. And this is so, and you get into this towards the end of the first chapter in your book. You talk about the foolishness of protectionism, in that, it's impossible to keep your exports high while also protecting your private sector from competitive foreign markets. So every country kind of wants their cake and eating it too, and that they want to export a lot to the world, but they don't want their own market participants to have to compete with others in the world. But the digital age is just basically dumped water all over that, right? There's no more borders.
It vaporizes the borders.
Yeah.
And by the way, Bitcoin actually plays into that really well.
Yeah.
Too, but because in a digital world that looks like that, you needed natively digital currency.
Yes. Yeah, because the one piece we didn't have was capital to move over those networks.
Exactly. That's agreed on by everybody and as to value
Yeah.
for that value exchange.
Yeah. So yeah, it's so interesting. So we have this, I guess the rising debt in the world is almost where it's a symptom, right? Where the decree of trying to, I guess, force growth maybe is the right term here. They're trying to just use inflation to, as an MMT would say, activate idle capital, but just to accomplish government established aims. Which, as an aside here, Mises would actually say, I learned this in Human Action, I thought it was really interesting. Every government action is necessarily wasteful because they are pulling factors of production away from the free market, through taxes or whatever means, and they're pointing it towards some politically established agenda that the free market was not doing on its own by definition. Otherwise, the government wouldn't need to take action.
Right.
So it's constantly reshuffling our resources towards lower value aims on balance. And so we have that system of decree, I guess, colliding with economic reality. And the economic reality is we're innovating and becoming more productive. But the system of decree is dependent on debt and the growth of debt and inflation to discharge the debt over time. So it's like an arms race almost between entrepreneurs globally innovating and central banks trying to keep prices inflating to keep the debt-based system sustainable.
Yeah, and you bring up some really interesting points. A lot of the people that are most hurt by this are the people that are fighting, that they want MMT, they want, and those are the people that are actually most disadvantaged by the system. And so, but if you actually understand their point of view, if you're having a hard time paying for your groceries or paying for your rent, or you've lost your job and the market has, and the non-free market government has kept prices really high, and you're left out,
Right.
then you're desperate. You're not exploring the things we're exploring. You're not deep into thought where we can explore a whole bunch of these things and really understand it. You're desperate. You're desperate to feed your family.
Right.
And you'll listen to anybody that says, okay, I'll give you a $2,000 check. You'll vote for them.
Yeah.
Without realizing they gave it to you by picking your other pocket.
That's right.
They took it from you to give it to you, because the inequality, that inflation that is driving the wealth inequality more and more and more, is them saying, I'm going to divide the pie how I want to divide the pie.
Yeah.
And so when you keep on doing that, and there is no free market right now.
Yeah.
And it's way worse than people realize. I'm on a whole bunch of boards, and I look at these board projections, and I look at how much money is coming from the government into their business and everything else. But that's a first order thing.
Yeah.
A lot of those people think everything's great because they're still profitable and everything else, without realizing most of it's government funding.
Right.
And then they don't realize most of their customers are only in business because of the government funding too.
Right.
Right. And so their business would collapse, as with all of it would just be nominals across the board. And so we live in an illusion of that capital being good capital, when the free market would and so it's misallocating capital everywhere.
Right.
And on that path away from the free market, essentially that other end of the spectrum is you concentrate all power in government.
Yeah.
And then government is essentially the biggest thug.
Yeah.
Is in power. And you see other countries that look like that.
Yeah.
And that is in the future for the US, Canada, everywhere else along this path.
Yeah. It's as if the political structure, I guess it's almost like they're tricking people in a way, that they're saying we need more growth, more jobs, which people think sounds great because everyone's in desperate need of more money because they're being pickpocketed by inflation and other impediments to the free market. So it's an illusion, right? They're holding out this that you everyone. It's not to
The
say
whole
that
thing.
yeah the jobs themselves, like everyone. And Mises talks about this too, where institutional unemployment only happens again when government is taking resources from some to point towards another aim. That when they pull resource, this could be with minimum wage, right? When you set an artificial floor to labor prices, that creates unemployment.
Right.
So it's the government almost shooting itself in the foot for whatever reason, lack of knowledge. Maybe.
Again, and they go back to the big thing. What would they do right now? And I actually, I wish I had an answer.
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing that can be done. The existing system will fail.
Yeah.
And it's spectacularly probably. But what would you do? There is no answer. There's no money there. It's debt.
Yeah.
A debt-based economy cannot work with technology today.
Yeah.
Because technology is driving prices down. So anything that stops technology from driving prices down concentrates power in people who are printing money. Centralizing. That's it. That is everything along that axis, and what they missed. So could this have gone on for a lot longer, and why didn't we see it? Right? Why did my book kind of hit that nerve? And people are starting to see it. It lit a match, and everybody. So, but why didn't we see it? Because we measure everything from the existing system. We don't know how fast technology is moving. And so now that you see it, you can't unsee it. You see it everywhere, this idea is connected to everything.
Yeah.
So a lot of times we might move. Me too. We might move too fast to Bitcoin because we've already gone down the rabbit hole and understand what it looks like. And you'll notice in the book, that's actually why I left. It's a paragraph at the end instead of the whole thing.
Right.
And because once you accept the fact that technology is deflationary, and you realize we're just starting on that and it's more and more deflationary, then instead of defending that, because that is true, it's a fact, what we should ask is, how does any system that requires inflation not centralize all control and the power of a very few?
Right.
Because that's the other side of this, right? So how does any system that blocks that benefit of technology, essentially driving abundance to society, how is any system that stops that not concentrating all control?
Right, because by definition, the free market is distributing the fruits of that labor. Right, as we become more productive, everyone's prices are decreasing, freeing everyone's time to innovate more and produce more savings and move on. But when you block that, whoever's blocking it, the power accretes to them.
Totally. And it's why today billionaires are increasing the rate of the inequality, how much wealth they've gained during their crisis. It's this, and then taxes will go up to say, oh, we're going to tax them a little bit to give to these people because we created artificially high prices over here to save them in the first place. That's why there's nothing that can be done for the existing system to cope with how fast technology has changed the rules.
The other thing that we touched on, but maybe is worth fleshing out a bit, is that the actual creation of this debt is self-annihilating in the long run because it's actually constraining future growth.
Yep.
You could say it's pulling it forward, but it's at the cost of later sacrifice. You have to service that debt, and so it's pulling down growth and productivity while at the same time increasing the service cost of debt, which is interest. And when those two things cross, it's like you're in a debt jubilee situation. It just has to blow up. I mean, this is what goes on must come down kind of thing.
Yeah, but debt jubilee, there will be no debt jubilee. Right.
Yeah, I would say agreed. There has to be, I would just say default, implicit or explicit.
That's a better way. So they're trying. This is already a default, and they're trying to implicitly do that through inflation.